everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to be making a scenic Irish countryside in a jar. So we have a few materials here that you also have at home in your kits. We have the mason jar, the two, one large and one small, moss stone, the reindeer moss that you could break up into pieces when we get to that point. We have rocks, little pebbles, and two little sheep. Then at the end, we're going to add on to the outside of our jars, we're going to try some silver twine just for some decoration. And then we also have some shamrock stickers, also for decoration, to celebrate St. Patrick's Day this month. So I'm going to start just by opening up the jar. And of course, as the instructions that you have in front of you state, this will also require hot glue and a hot glue gun, which is not provided, but I hope you have that at home. So the first thing we're going to do is take the larger moss stone, and we're just going to put that in the bottom of the jar. You kind of have to squeeze it in, but once it's in, it will stay put. Just want to flip mine over. Okay. Now another tool I think you might need, definitely going to recommend to use, is either like a popsicle stick or a pen, something that you can use to push different items down because it's kind of hard to get your hand in the glass. So I'm just going to take my popsicle stick and kind of push down the rock, the moss rock, so that it stays in place and it will be secure at the bottom of the jar. So now it's all, it's in there, it's not going to fall out or anything, and that's step one. Step two would be to take the smaller moss stone, and what we're going to do is, before we actually place it inside the jar, we are going to take some hot glue and glue the sheep onto the moss stone before we put it in the jar. So let me go off screen for a second. I'm going to get some hot glue. So what I'm going to do actually is apply a little bit like to each of the sheep's feet, little blop, and then just stick it right on the moss stone like that, right next to each other. So I'm going to step away for a second and do that with the sheep. Okay, so now we have our two sheep hot glued onto the smaller moss stone. They're not going to fall off. They're on there very secure. Whoops. And next, we're going to place a little bit of hot glue on the bottom of this moss stone and then very carefully place it into the jar to layer on top of the first larger moss stone. So I have got a little hot glue on the bottom of the moss stone, and I'm going to carefully place it into the jar. I'm going to hold onto the sheep kind of for placement and kind of drop it right in. Okay, then I'm going to take my popsicle stick or pen or whatever you got on handy, and I'm going to just press that down and make sure the smaller moss stone glues and sticks onto the larger moss stone. And this is the basis for our island in a jar. Now, the next part, we're gonna add in some of the reindeer moss. So I've taken it, I've kind of ripped it up into smaller pieces so that we can spread it around the jar. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of just plop and drop some pieces in, kind of evenly around the rocks. And then what we're going to do is take our pushing device, our popsicle stick, our pens, whatever we have, and we're going to kind of just push the reindeer moss down into place. So you could push this, around the other moss stones down to the bottom of the jar, and back and front, all around, just for decoration, to kind of help the moss stone stay in place as well. So I'm just going to throw some more in there. and put a little in the front. And a little more on the side, and you might not use all of the reindeer moss. You might not need it all, or maybe you want to put it all in there. Push more, towards the bottom to fit more reindeer moss. I'm going to put a little more on this end. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Okay, so this is what we have so far. And next we're gonna take some of the pebbles and we're kind of just gonna arrange them in the glass, spread them around to mimic different, stones, different rocks that you might see in the Irish countryside where these sheep are. So I'm gonna kind of just drop these in, and if you drop them in, you don't like where they end up, you can always push them around with our stick or our pen. Kind of just get those around on the outside. And then I'm actually going to take my popsicle stick and push a little of these rocks down so they kind of go under the moss rock. Spread them out a little more. You can arrange them differently if you don't like where they ended up. Okay. Now we have our pebbles added into our scenic jar. And that is all that's going to go into the jar. So the next part of this is to put the cap on. And we're just going to really decorate our jars. So we have some silver twine that we can kind of tie around, make a little bow. Let me do that right now. And then after you have the twine tied on, the next step and final step is going to be to decorate with our shamrock stickers. So I'm going to turn this bow around to the front. Okay, right. And next, I'll leave this up to you guys. You have some different shamrock stickers to choose from, light green, dark green. And you can just decorate them, if you'd like to put them around on the glass, you could put them on top, or if you like it better without the stickers, you don't need to use them at all. So this is our Ireland in a jar, our take-home adult craft for the month of March, celebrating St. Patrick's Day here at Cold Spring Harbor Library. And if you enjoyed this craft, be sure to be on the lookout for our next take-home craft, which is going to be paint a wooden birdhouse for the month of April. Okay, so I hope everyone enjoyed this. And I hope you enjoy displaying your Ireland in a jar.